Hey everyone, welcome to the Infopreneur Agency Industry Leader Workshop with Infopreneur Agency, myself, Omar Briones, and Scott Doucet. He is our #1 go-to podcast master. He specializes in helping people create their podcast the right way and avoid all the stumbling blocks and the biggest mistakes that most podcasters make that leave them broke. So if you want to make some money with your podcast, this is the right webinar for you. Make sure you take lots of notes, and we will have a very interactive call today. So make sure you participate and ask questions. We're going to personalize this for you, and we want to make sure we help you with your specific podcast. With that said, Scott Doucet, I want to just kind of quickly introduce him. He's been a podcaster for about 3 years. He's helped many people set up their podcasts. He's helped over 1,000 people through webinars and groups. He's one of the co-founders of Podcast Bay. He's actually the founder and one of the owners of it now. And they do some amazing stuff. They're absolutely the best, #1 best podcast community on the internet, in the universe. All right.
It's a lot of hype.
I mean, it's true. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it is. So I just want to make sure everyone knew about what Scott does. And what we're going to do here again is we're specializing. I mean, we're helping you make money with your podcast. It's not just a hobby. We're helping you turn it into a money-making machine. All right. So let's get started here. Welcome, Scott. Thanks for being here. So take it away. I know you wanted to. I know you don't have any slides, right? You don't have slides. You don't really do that, right?
I have a Post-it note with all the things I want to talk about on it. That's the way.
Awesome.
Old school.
Right on. Awesome. So again, you guys, feel free to keep yourself unmuted if you want, and feel free to ask questions at any time. We're super helpful for you. And if you don't want to do that, you can just type them in the chat box. All right. So Scott, go ahead and take it away.
Sweet. Well, thank you. Hopefully I can live up to some of those very kind things you said and give people the experience that they're hoping to achieve from this. If you guys have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask them in the chat box. I'm on my phone as well, so I may not see them. So I see that someone here has already spoken. I make a lot of podcast mistakes, and I've been super broke from it. Okay, well, perfect. This is for you. So basically what I wrote down were 7 pitfalls that end up costing us a ton as we get going. And a lot of them are just, they're host error. They're not something that is necessarily influenced from the outside world. Because one thing I have noticed is when you get over your internal snags, people are lining up to buy what you're selling, to be more involved, to buy into what it is you're putting out. Whether you're an entertainment-based podcast or a business-based podcast, the customers are there. You just need to know how to connect to them and what to give them. And funny part is they actually tell you. So, so basically what I've got is a list of 7 things that we do as hosts that screws us in the long term and stops us from making either a show or money at it. So the #1 thing I see people doing, and they do it even before they start their show, is they get caught up in the details. I had a teacher once tell me that if you take care of the details, the big picture takes care of itself. And that is true. However, details can be scary. Details can be overwhelming. Details can really hold you up from moving forward. So it's good to have a big picture in your mind. Commit yourself to, yes, I'm going to start a podcast, or yes, I'm going to make money from my podcast, and then figure out the details. Where people get caught up is that they worry more about the little intricate things they don't know, and they get caught up in the minutia of things. So one thing I will say is it's more important to develop the habit of consistently putting out content than it is to worry about, is my sound quite right? Is my, do I ask redundant questions? Before you get down on yourself there, record things regularly. Just start there. Even if you never publish it, record things regularly. Omar and I have done recordings together that I'm not sure have ever seen the light of day. And frankly, I'm grateful for that. But, it's a chance for you to stretch your legs, to get your feet wet, and to say, do I like this? What do I want to change? before the world is watching. Nice part is, one of the fears people have is someone going to listen? Are people going to listen to me? Or do people even want to? While you're in that phase, you're missing a golden opportunity to make mistakes no one's going to care about. So instead of getting caught up in the minutia, I think, which is the number one thing that holds everyone back from doing this properly, get into the habit of recording things regularly, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like. You can be your own worst critic, but at the end of the day, as long as you're habitually doing this, you're going to be producing stuff that eventually you're really going to want to share with the world. So start there. Just get in the habit of producing content regularly. You know.
Gotcha. And Scott, do you mind if I ask you questions and kind of interrupt here?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm just curious. So if somebody doesn't have any idea, like, you know, I assume this is kind of for someone who is just getting started. They don't even know like what topic they should use or what, like if it's worth it, you know, that's another thing that boggles people down with the details, is doing the research, trying to see if this topic is popular or if it's worth it. You know, I'm just like, as far as deciding the topic, that alone, and the system of how you're going to do it, those details are probably the things that really slow people down, right?
Yeah.
Like the majority. So what would you suggest, I mean, to that? I mean, do you have any advice on like how to choose a topic, or how to start? Like what, you know, how do you even start?
There's two ways to do this, and both ways have equal amount of merit. And I find one appeals to me as a person who likes to jump in with both feet and concrete tied around my ankles. And you are the kind of person who likes to figure things out, learn the details, plan, do research, stuff like that. So what I will say is, number one, if it is a topic that gets you so fired up and so passionate and so into it that you just want to talk to everybody and anybody about this, if you can see a monetization strategy coming out of it, you know, then, and money is your end game, then I would say like, this is what you should be doing. If you're that passionate about it and you know you can make money at it, you should be doing it. Because that's what I did. I was like, you know, I'm really passionate about recording, about audio, about this, about that, about helping people, about business, about money. I need to tie that all together and do a show. It's done very well because of it's passion driven. When I get on the mics, I'm energetic, I'm happy. Everyone I meet in my communities and surrounding communities, they can feel it off of me, how energized I get when I talk about this stuff. So that's an internal indicator.
Scott, you cut out there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't say anything. That's an internal indicator. It's like, if you're very passionate about it and you can see beyond a shadow of a doubt that this works. Because I'll be honest, everyone in my life told me this wasn't going to work, and it worked. So,
Gotcha, okay.
There's that aspect. The other aspect, if you're more like what I assume Omar is, where he's not going to be the type to jump in with both feet and figure out how to swim on the way down to the bottom of the ocean like I do not underestimate market research. Market research is the greatest thing. And if you don't want to call it market research because that intimidates you, just call it asking questions. You know, ask people around you with the money that you want to tap into. What do you need? What do you want to hear? What's lacking? You know, line that up with your skills and what you know. For instance, I desperately need website help, landing page help specifically. Okay. Omar, let's say Omar wants to start a podcast and he goes out and he knows he's got a certain skill set and he's got an eye for what makes a good landing page. Maybe he asks people, would anyone want to listen to a show specifically about landing pages? And, you know, we're going to do inside a group, we're going to do a weekly web page review and tell everyone why this particular page sucks. See, I would listen to that. So right away, I would jump on Omar's market research and I go, yes, I desperately need help there. I really would love to listen to a show because I don't pay into programs. I listen and implement 99% of the time. However, I know, and Omar knows, that if I get stuck and can't do what he tells me to do, I'm going to hire him. Okay. So you want a fast path to cash, find out what people need, put out free content, have it lead to a service you offer. That is like the simple, like it's more complicated than that, but that is like the simple steps. For me, I talk about podcasting. I teach people how to do it well. If they don't have the time or the desire to learn, they hire me and I produce their stuff. That's how my business model works, right? So, and I figured that out by asking around. Hey, is it the knowledge about podcasting you don't understand, or is it the time? And for most people, it was the time. They did not want to do this stuff.
Gotcha.
So that's where I found my niche. So you can either ask people what matters to you, what would you want to listen to based on things and get the market research out of the way, or you can just dive in because you love it. Because I'm a firm believer that anything can be monetized. It's just that if you have a strategy going in, like, okay, I want to send out a monthly subscription box to my fans, and it's going to include a bunch of cool stuff. Or I want to affiliate with my guests because they're awesome, and I don't have any programs or services myself, so I'm just going to sell them. Or I have a service, I need content surrounding it so that people will hire me. Like, as long as you know how you want to make money, you can very quickly surmise what you want to talk about, how you want to structure your content. But I find people start with like, I want a podcast instead of I want a revenue generating thing. And for me, like, if money's the end game, don't lie to yourself. Think about how you're going to make money. The content can be free, but don't pretend you don't want to make money, because that's the worst thing you can do, is get in and be like, I'm not here for the cash, because I am. Like, I like to make money at the end of the day doing what I do. And I've found that being honest with myself there has been very helpful to me.
Right on. Awesome.
So
great advice. Yeah. And I'm sure everyone here wants to make money with their podcast too.
Yeah. So number two, getting ahead of yourself. That's the other thing. And again, getting ahead of yourself. Maybe you don't want to plan everything out. You just want to start a show. Well, then you're left with a product you need to figure out, okay, how do I turn this into money? Which happened with my first show. Got ahead of myself, knew I wanted to start a podcast, paid a coach a bunch of money. He taught me how to do it. I got in, I did it. And then after a year of doing the show, realized that although I love the show, the only way I can make money at it is to affiliate, and that's not really how I wanted to make my money. So I had to go back to the drawing board. I got ahead of myself. Some people think they're going to start a podcast. They're going to make 6 million downloads in the first 6 months, get sponsored, and that's the end of that. And then they get in and they see slow traction, and they almost kill themselves inside because they got so far ahead of the game and so excited about what could be that they didn't really pay attention to the reality of what is. So I would say getting ahead of yourself and getting too much expectation of what's going to happen will disillusion you, and you will deceive yourself, and then you won't know how to deal with slow growth, or you won't know how to veer left or right when you need to, like, and adapt to the situation that's happening. So don't get too far ahead of yourself.
Right on. And that is not to be confused with the first lesson, which is at least start recording yourself. It's not about not recording yourself. It's about not publishing it, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, it's about not necessarily, like, there's this whole fake it till you make it thing that I can't stand. And some guys get out there and they juke their stats and they pretend they have huge.
Oh, hey, Mike, can you mute yourself?
Sorry, 2. Press 2.
Yeah, I'm on my phone too. This is going to be interesting. All right. So, Scott, please, Mike, please mute yourself. Sorry, you guys, for the inconvenience here. Sorry, guys.
Mike is not an inconvenience.
We're
Mike
good.
Is wonderful.
Okay, go for it, Scott.
Yeah. So, like, not getting ahead of yourself doesn't necessarily mean, like, don't record, don't put a show out. Not getting ahead of yourself simply means be realistic with the results that are going to come your way. Expect very little, because at first, very little people know about your show. They're not aware you do a show even. So at first, like anything, when I first started my business, people didn't know I produced podcasts. It took a few months for them to catch up. Same thing with your show. When you first put it out there, unless you've got like a really good email list that you can launch to and everything's going to be amazing, or a big Facebook community that you can launch to, if you're pre-established, you're going to get pre-established numbers, and that's going to feel really good. But for those of you who aren't pre-established, don't let that bother you. When I started, I didn't have any voice. I live in a place called Bathurst, New Brunswick. No one's heard of it. No one knew I existed until I got on the internet and started podcasting. And then hotshots like Omar found me and were like, wow, you really know your stuff. So it takes time to establish yourself. Don't get ahead of yourself. You know, don't expect that on day 6, you're going to be a pro and you're going to have all these celebrity connections and you're going to be invited to parties in New York City for grand openings. It took me 3 years to get invited to my first party. Okay. And I don't get to go because I'm having a baby. Like, take your time, enjoy the journey, enjoy the learning experience, enjoy the stuff that's really frustrating and learn from it. Like, just don't be so excited to succeed that you miss out on all the growth opportunities. That kills a lot of people. Their first month in, they don't have their 6 million downloads and they cry about it and stop.
Right on.
Don't do that. So that's another pitfall. It's a mental one.
Okay. Also, I want to just let everyone know, right now we are sharing the pitfalls and the common mistakes that podcasters make, but we will have solutions shared after we share these. We're gonna hopefully guide you towards the best path for you to make the most money with your podcast. So just wanted to remind everyone that. Yeah.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay.
No worries.
We have solutions for everything. Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
So, number 2, people are disillusioned about how to make money. There are at minimum 10 ways that I know of right now to monetize a podcast directly or indirectly. And the only one I hear about online is sponsorship. So that's a whole other scenario. But what I will say is there's a lot of ways to make money at this, and you're only really limited by your creativity and your resources. So I'll just list them out real quick. There's sponsorship, which everyone knows about. It's someone else paying you so they can run ads and sell stuff to your audience. There's affiliation, which ends up being a lot more lucrative than sponsorship if you affiliate with people who have high ticket stuff. Merchandise. Maybe you're an entertainment show and you got a cool logo. Slap it on a t-shirt and sell it to people. Okay. There's Patreon, which Patreon is basically like a membership community for people who don't like membership communities. It's for the more entertainment or gamer or hobby-based shows. They tend to succeed really well on Patreon because their following gets extra goodies from them. There's a membership community. If you're more business, Patreon may not work for you because it feels very Kickstarter-esque. Start a membership community. Start pouring all your best resources in it and charge a monthly fee to people. Speaking of monthly fees, I do a subscription box. It's a treasure chest because podcast pays all piety. I send out every month a box with reports on how people can make their show better. And then like stickers and postcards and merchandise and handwritten thank yous and all that. I'm going to be putting t-shirts and mic flags in there, just related podcasting stuff. You know, so affiliation, sponsorship, merchandise, Patreon, membership communities. There's a pay to play model, right? Some people charge their guests to come on. It's not my favorite model. Me and someone who does that could argue until we're blue in the face about the perks, pros, and cons. Frankly, if you want to do it, do it. Like, you know, like it is a monetization strategy. There's setting up a path, like a sales process between you and your services, your direct services, direct hire, right? If you have a premium service that you can do for someone else, you can sell that. So like just sitting right there, there's a ton of ways to get this done. And, you know, looking back at my education podcast, I could have so made like a monthly loot crate full of like goodies from all of my guests to send out and charged a monthly fee for it. So, I mean, you're only really limited by your knowledge and your imagination and then what you can throw together. And sponsorship is not the be all and end all. It's actually like the least profitable way to go unless you've got thousands of downloads. So it's not about the numbers. It's more about the relevant people in your network. And I mean, I know people who can turn an audience of 500 into money and people who have 10,000 can't. So
right on.
Disillusionment about money. That's a big
one. Right on. So the mistake is not using the right tool for monetizing, or
it's mostly just people think there's only one way to get her done. You know, they
Gotcha.
walk in and they realize that there's more than just sponsorship out there. And I find that it gets almost to the point where people are like, oh, really? I can just merchandise, or I can send out a loot crate. What? They haven't really thought about it because they thought sponsorship was the only way to go, and it's not.
Right on. Gotcha.
Too much weight on new and noteworthy. Okay. Charting is cool. Getting on the iTunes charts is beastly. And if you've got a pre-established audience, you can do it so easily by getting everyone to go subscribe to your show on the first few days, because the weight is in the first 24, 36, 48 hours, all the way up to 72. So if you can get as many people as possible coming in and slamming that subscribe button, leaving rates and reviews, listening to all your episodes, you will fall somewhere on the chart if you get enough people. The problem with new and noteworthy is that it's not an algorithm. There's a living person there choosing shows that they think there's something good about. So I followed my own strategies and did not hit new and noteworthy. And then some of my clients have followed the strategies I gave them and hit above Tony Robbins. It's simply because of the amount of people they steered in that direction. Okay. Now, new and noteworthy has a human element. It's going to be very difficult to crack in there. But if you take care of your content, your sound quality, your artwork, and you have a really good show, rather than worrying about strategies and how to juke stats or how to get as many people there as possible, just put together a really good show, and that will give you a better chance to get into new and noteworthy than trying to manipulate things. Now, the what's hot chart, the top 200 charts, I'll give you right now the weight: subscription, then rates and reviews, then listener numbers. So if you really want to hit the top 200 chart, get as many people you can in the first 3 days to hit that subscribe button. That is the way to do it. And as you continue growing your show and your audience, every once in a while, run a subscription campaign. Be like, hey, everybody, we're going to, next week, I want to see as many people as possible subscribe to the show, share it out, ask people to subscribe, etc. Leverage your network, get them to share it with their friends, and you stand a better chance of charting. But I find podcasters come to me and I'm like, what's your goal for this? And they're like, we really want to hit new and noteworthy. And then I'm like, okay, that may not happen. And then what? And so wanting to hit new and noteworthy as your primary goal, getting out, I say tweak your, your launch strategy a bit. If you want to chart, go for it. Try really hard, make a great show, get everybody in there, but don't let that be your be all and end all, because new and noteworthy, there's no guarantee you're going to get in it. Even if you do everything perfect that somebody teaches you, it just, it may not happen.
Well, I mean, I'm curious. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really check the new and noteworthy stuff and podcasts in general. But as at least like iTunes, I don't really use it that much. So want to explain it to us? Like, what is the point of the new and noteworthy and hot stuff, or whatever it was? Yeah, what's hot?
The reason why people have latched onto new and noteworthy is podcast gurus such as myself, not me, but people like me, have told people, oh, new and noteworthy is a great way to get in front of thousands of people, which is true. And we can help you get there, which is half true. See, then they'll give you all the skills, all the tools, everything that they know will get you there. And then it's a 50-50 chance you're going to get there or not, because they actually have no sway or control over it. So people getting in and wanting to hit new and noteworthy is, in my opinion, it's a misguided goal, because there is no guarantee. There's some guy who really loves podcasts sitting at a desk going, this one makes it, this one doesn't, Whereas on the what's hot and top 200 charts, that is where your skills and your strategy and your effort pays off, because the top 200 is like top 200 subscribed to shows in the last 72 hours. Gotcha. Those things change every week, right? So those are the opportunities where, let's say you start off and you drive everyone to your website to join your mailing list. Let's say that's your goal. You want list, because that's one of my things that I have. Well, rather, if you don't have an established audience, I would say establish your audience, then send everybody to subscribe all at the same time. Get people on a waiting list even. hey, I'm about to launch a podcast. Would you like to be on the waiting list to help us with this thing? Get everyone onto an email list and tell them through email, this is going to pop off on this day, and this is what I need you to do. I need you to go to iTunes. I need you to click subscribe. If you feel like you want to do more, leave a rate and review. Because then you're sending a bunch of traffic that way instead of trickle-in traffic. So my biggest thing has always been send people to your website and build a community, then worry about ranking later. But some people, they like to run before they can walk. So if you have a pre-established audience, just get them hitting that subscribe button as much as possible. And that will put you in the charts. And then once you're in the charts, there is a little more exposure there. But unless you're on the first page of the charts, how much is to be determined. So that's why I think charting isn't necessarily the best use of your launch time. Getting an email list established is. Or Facebook community. Email's not your thing. So that is another one of my pitfalls, actually, was no list or no community established.
Right on.
The only time I've ever done well in anything is when I've created a community surrounding it. And the deeper and bigger that community, the safer you are. So if you want to start a podcast and you want to make money at it, or even if you don't want to start a podcast, or even if you don't want to make money at it, it's best to have a community. I chose Facebook groups over email lists. I'm just going to go shut that phone off.
All right. That's probably another mistake, by the way, you guys, having your ringtone going off in the background. So when you have a podcast, you guys turn off your phones, all right?
Please leave a message after the tone.
Don't do that. Yeah, so sorry, I'm at my folks' place for about a week, and this is like the worst place to do a webinar, I'm learning.
Oh, yeah.
You can't turn it into an office space to save your life. It's a home. It's a residential place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not having a list was probably the dumbest thing I did, because I started my show, and then I was like, yes, we're going to do this. Now what? Nowhere to talk to people, nowhere to tell them what was up. You can't pound your personal profile with your episodes all the time because no one cares. They're there to figure out, what you did this week, where you're visiting. Your personal profile is there not for podcast listeners. So I would say start a group or an email list specifically for your podcast listeners. Because then if you want to sell something to them, they're all in one place. If you want to tell them about a new episode, they're all in one place. If you want if you want to ask them questions like, who would you like to see on? You can do your market research all in one place. I have a Facebook community called Podcast Bay. Go figure, it's about my show. The first thing in there that people see, the pinned post, is a poll with about 30 options on it about what would you like to learn from my show. People click a box or 30 boxes, and now I know what my content should be. That's so valuable to me. I ask questions in there. I share episodes in there. I sell things in there. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I have a lot more success than if I tried doing it from my personal Facebook wall. So establish a community with a clear purpose. You are here to be a fan of my show, to be involved with the show, to give me feedback, to help out, to support, and to get the content. The content that you need, the content that you love.
Yeah, right on. And it makes it more interactive. It makes the user or the listener or subscriber feel like they're a part of the show and they're contributing to it,
Oh, yeah. I never thought this would happen, but I've got literal fans. And that's like that. I'm a reluctant leader. Like, I never signed up for that. Yeah. And so when that started happening, like, I have people calling me and I'm like, hey man, I'm 14. I caught your show and like podcasting stopped me from killing myself and you're the man. And I'm just like,
wow,
thank you. How do you reply to that? So yeah, really good things start happening when you develop a community. People look to you, they appreciate you, and you appreciate them, and you can start building relationships back and forth. I will say that email list trumps Facebook groups for one reason and one reason only. Everybody gets their damn emails. Nobody gets their Facebook notifications anymore. That's always changing. So I would say, like, I have a Facebook community. I don't have an email list. I'm a hypocrite. But I'm starting an email list because I'm 3 years in and I'm seeing the value of just having a place where I can send people a weekly digest of what I'm up to, what's on the show this week. Email signature, link to a couple of your last episodes in your email signature. Like there's little things you can do to an email group to really help boost your numbers and get people involved. So start a community, because that's one of the bigger pitfalls is people get out there, they put out this content, but then no one wants to hang out with them because there's nowhere to hang out.
I also want to point out something really, really powerful about the email list as well. When you are, especially if you're looking to monetize your podcast and make money with it, not only, of course, like what Scott pointed out, you can directly just sell to them. You can send an email out and sell something or sell merchandise or whatever else. But you can, like, as you're building your email list, that adds more to your assets, more value to it. So when you're going to a sponsor, a potential sponsorship opportunity, you can present them, we have, X amount of subscribers and X amount of email subscribers who, we send emails out all the time. And that's something that gets you a little more boost on your edge, more juice to them. They see, oh, okay, so you're really building a real community here. You're building it like a business. This is the real deal. So anyway, just want to point that out. So you guys, make sure you're building your list.
I love that you said that, because I have approached sponsors myself, of course, and I've landed quite a few early on until I realized like sponsorship is not my vehicle. It's not the one I want to use. But a lot of my clients still like sponsorship as a potential vehicle to use. So just a couple of weeks ago, I went to every business group I could find, and I asked, if you were to sponsor a podcast, what would you be looking for? And the answers were pretty surprising, man. Only half of them said podcast listeners. Like, how many listeners do you have? The vast majority of them said, how many Twitter followers do you have? How many Facebook members in your group? What is your Facebook page reach like? When you post a post, how many eyes see it? They care more about your reach and how to leverage that than they do about your actual podcast listens now. So having that email list to be able to say, I get, let's say you get 100 listens a month to your podcast, but you have an email list of 500 people, and you can tell them these 500 people are public speakers, let's say. They all want to be public speakers, and they all are looking for ways to get bookings. They're all looking for ways to create a press kit. They're all looking for ways. The more you can tell a sponsor about that email list, the more you can go find a relevant sponsor and start cashing in. So it's very important to have a community, not just for the support, but the people who are going to buy into you. They not only want to know how many there are, but who they are and what they need. So, and again, from that, you can either develop products or put someone else's products in your audience's path. I personally prefer to develop my own, but occasionally you find someone like Omar who offers such a solid service that you have to put him in front of your audience, and that does happen sometimes. And so but there's so much value in having a community, both for the community, for you, and for a potential sponsor or affiliate. So having a community, I think, has been the make or break point for me. So now into one of my personal pet peeves. I'd say this is number 6. Yeah, this is number 6. Not enough attention to sound quality. We're an audio-only medium. You do have to sound good. I know I said just record and don't worry about things. Don't get ahead of yourself earlier. Once you're ready to publish, it's a good idea to put a little bit of money into equipment. Does not have to break the bank. An ATR 2100 from Audio-Technica costs under $70 for the entire set. Okay? You get the pop screen, you get a boom arm, and you get the mic, and it's USB. So you literally just plug it in, and you can use Zoom to record your stuff, and Zoom's a free software one-on-one. So literally for $70, you can have all of the equipment you need to record your show, okay? And sound good. So with that being said, there's really no excuse. It doesn't cost $500 for a good mic. $67 is the cheapest I've seen it so far.
Nice.
So you can go pick it up. I prefer it over the Yeti. People will argue with me. The Yeti has some great functions, but as far as consistently sounding good in any environment, I prefer the ATR 2100. So with that, pop that in. If you want to learn editing, I say awesome. It's an amazing skill to have because one, it's a monetizable skill. That's what I do. But two, it gives you an idea of what goes into it, and it puts you in the driver's seat to control your sound quality. If you don't want to learn it, there are people like me who already know it, who we want to make you sound good because we don't want to put out gross sounding stuff. So there's producers out there who are going to produce your show in a way that they could be proud of. And that might be a standard even higher than yours. But I will say that Audacity is a free software. You can get in there, run some noise reduction, and that will make you sound better than 80% of the shows out there. An ATR and a little bit of noise reduction goes a long way. So it doesn't have to cost a fortune, but it is something you should be paying attention to, because there's two types of listeners: people who are there for your content and people who love and appreciate sound. You'll never lose the content junkies by sounding great, but you will lose the audio files by sounding awful. So,
And on that note, I just want to ask, I've seen people, making videos while they're doing the podcast. It's not totally necessary, I assume, but it does help with expanding your reach, because you can post it on YouTube and all these other video sites. What are your thoughts on that, Scott? What do you think about having a video set up as well? Is that still thinking too much ahead?
I'm a snob. So I think if you're going to be doing video, I personally don't want to watch your Zoom interview. However, I will watch, if you and I were sitting in the same room right now, recording this on video, I'd be all over that. And I don't know where the difference is in my mind. But if you look at shows like The Breakfast Club, they're a hip hop interview show. When they're sitting there around a desk talking to Ed Sheeran or Gary Vee or the plethora of hip hop heads that they get on, I cannot stop watching that show, because in the room, what's going on there makes the greatest video ever. I find Zoom, I get bored as a viewer. But the worst thing I think you can do is put your podcast up with just artwork and the audio onto YouTube. No one's really going to watch it. Unless you're using it for to send backlinks and traffic all over the place, which YouTube loves, by the way. If you can link to other videos of yours on YouTube, it'll help your rankings. A little tip: if you are posting to YouTube, one of the things that I learned from a mad scientist friend of mine is if you backlink to first of all, your file name it whatever you're going to name your title. Because unlike podcasting, you can name your file anything. It doesn't matter. YouTube, they search your file name for keywords. So have your file name exactly what you want it to be. Put your title in there, and then in the description, link to a couple of your other YouTube videos. YouTube loves it when you keep people on YouTube. So 1 or 2 links to your own videos. On your third link, find a related video to yours with a massive amount of views and link that. The reason why I say that is you'll show up in that video's related videos. I call it a hijack link. I think that sounds pretty awful, but it's basically you will show up in their related videos because you tagged them in it. So that's just something you can do to help with a little bit of visibility. As far as video goes, you can do it. It doesn't hurt to be spread across multiple platforms. But the idea should always be to bring people back to the area where you're going to make a sale, or to bring people back to the community at the end of the day. So some people will get really romantic and go, don't put a podcast on YouTube. I say go ahead. The more video appealing you can make it, the better it'll perform. But ultimately, if it gets 1, 2, 3 people into your community, 4 people into your community, it's done its job. Because then you can start building relationships with those people and ultimately start selling to them or asking them questions or just getting involved with them, right? So I say it's good to do it. I don't do video because I don't have the gear. If I had the flashy cameras to make it so beautiful, I would do it. But video podcasts are not really where I want to be right now. In a year or 2, I'm thinking of building a professional grade studio, flying you to my house and talking to you one-on-one and getting video of that. You know, that would be better for me to put online. So that's my thoughts on video. It can be very boring just to stare at artwork. People can then go check out your podcast instead, you know, and not. And that's the other thing. The YouTube app is so behind the times that if you close it, it stops playing. The podcast app doesn't do that. So from that alone, like, and so the final pitfall that I have is something called the pod fade. It is inevitable. Okay. One of the biggest pitfalls, and it's the one you cannot avoid, is that podcasting is just not for you. There's no shame in it. I've seen people go out and spend $1,600 on a setup, another $900 on a consultation with a pro, and then get everything set up, be making stellar content, like beautiful content. And then 20 episodes in, they're like, man, I hate doing this. Some people just aren't podcasters, and that's so okay. Maybe they're better bloggers, or maybe they're better video, because a podcast ultimately operates the same way a blog or a YouTube channel does. It's putting out free content to eventually lead back to a spot, wherever that spot is for you, your website, your community, your sales page, whatever, right? So if you have better luck blogging and getting that done, maybe a podcast could be a waste of time, energy, resources, or whatever. I personally like podcasts because I can't read a blog while I'm driving, and I can't watch a video while I'm driving. So I throw on 8-9 hours of podcasts and listen to that all in one go. So like, when you think about that, like, podcasting is more accessible than the other two mediums, but that doesn't mean you have to be doing it. And so the pod fade is the ultimate pitfall, because it's people lying to themselves about, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And then they force themselves into it. They push through it because it's what other people are doing. And they realize, like, I just wasted a bunch of time and money, and I actually hate this. And that's why I say, start cheap. Start with an Audio Technica. Get into the habit. If you can record 20 episodes for no reason at all that no one's ever going to see, you can record 20 for the world. You know, like, so that's why I say establish the habit first. Invest in some decent gear that's not expensive, because you'll know within the first 12 to 20 episodes if this is something you enjoy and want to keep doing. So rather than have this big eccentric launch and then realize you hate it, tinker with it beforehand and then see, okay, do I love this? Where do I need to improve? Do I need expert help on something like promotion? Do I need help with my sound quality? Do I need more resources? Is knowledge my issue? Because a lot of people get in and enjoyment is the major issue, but they've already wasted all the money on all the things to make them a success, and they just hate it. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I want to comment on that actually. You know, this is a huge thing that it's so common with everyone I work with. I mean, not everyone, but like out of all the people I've worked with, I would say maybe like 90% of them have the same thing. It's that they have some business that they're only doing it for the money, or they're doing it for some ulterior motive other than because they want to and because they love it. They have a mission to do it. And your mission, your mission's got to be bigger than you. It's got to be like a really big why, something that really pushes you and drives you to do it, you know, every single day and consistently, at least whatever it is, once a month, once a week. Like, you got to really love it, you know, like these masterminds that we do and the webinars. I've committed myself because I want to do it. I have a big mission it takes a lot of work to put these together, by the way. I write all the copy, I put the sales pages, sales funnels, all that. And, you know, sending the traffic, writing the copy, all that. It's a lot of work, but I do it because I love it and I really want to do it. And my goal is to help, you know, millions of people, not only you who are here live, but people who are watching the recording, get the best resources they can to, you know, grow their business. So anyway, I know I digressed there, but my big point that I want to share here is that, you know, you really want to like have this, like you want to lead with your passion and start with, you know, your goal, your big vision. Like, what is it that's really driving you? And just, you know, go with that. And don't really think about, you know, just making money. And one more thing also, one little tip is make sure you have an exit strategy. So just in case you do try something and you don't know if it's going to be the thing you're going to do for the rest of your life, tell yourself, okay, I'm only going to do this for 1 year, or when I froze there, or I'm only going to do this for, you know, like 6 months or something. Like put a deadline, tell yourself, you know, and tell your listeners, this show is a series, it's a 12-part series or whatever, you know, put an end at it just in case you need to leave, or just in case you need to pass it on to someone else, you know?
Yeah. And one of the things I'll say on the topic of passion is, like, I didn't think podcasting was going to be my thing, man. I thought it was going to be a rock star. And so, like, but I got a job in radio when I was 15. And then I did all of their radio stuff, their programming, their editing, their splicing, you know, all that, commercials, news, weather, sports. Like I did that for a couple of years. And then I went on to be in a band, and we did all of our own merchandising, all of our own booking, all of our own, we recorded and edited and mixed and produced our own music. And like, when I got into the podcasting space, I saw a lot of people who wanted the things that I knew how to do, but didn't have a sweet clue how to do it. And then that became my passion, is like, wow, I already know this stuff. I learned it the hard way. I'm going to teach all these people things. And that's kind of where my show came about. I didn't expect to end up here. I didn't wake up in the morning when I was a 5-year-old and go, you know what? I'm going to be a podcast producer for business people. But I found that in doing this, like, I help a lady who does a sales show called Smart Leaders Sell. Her name is Jessica Lorimer. She's brilliant. And I'm the behind the scenes guy for her. And when people write her listener letters saying that they made $50,000 on a contract deal because they followed her show, the advice on her show, you have no idea what that means to me. You know, like, she's not necessarily, like, she passes the kudos off. She gets all the credit up front and she gives me what's due to me. But when I see that kind of stuff roll through, or where I see one of my clients say, man, I just sold a $997 program off the back end of my podcast. I'm so excited right now. Like, thank you. That stuff calls to, like, my heart, my passion, my drive, and why I'm here. Is like, I want to see people do what they love and make money at it, because podcasting has gotten the way musicians have gotten. Music, they'll be like, oh, come play for free drinks, or come play for exposure, or come play for, you know, people kind of treat podcasting the same way. There's either people who think you're never going to make money at it, or people who think you're going to become a millionaire, rock star podcaster, when really it falls somewhere in the middle, and everybody can make money at it. They need to know how, and they need to have realistic expectations of what's going to come next. So I didn't end up a rock star, but I am helping people in a much bigger way, in my opinion. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. You are a rock star, actually, in the podcasting world now.
Yeah, it's frightening.
Right on, man. Cool. So that said, you know, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I want to just kind of segue to the solutions. Like, how would you guide someone now that you explained the common pitfalls? Like, so how would you guide someone through selecting the right path for them? And I know we kind of shared a little bit, but let's just, you know, see what else you can share. If there's anything like specific, what kind of steps would you suggest for someone to choose the right path to podcast profits for them?
Perfect. If you're talking profit, I like that. That's my language. The people who don't want to profit, I really don't know how to talk to them, because I'm like, but why not though? So with podcasting for profit, number one, what is your realistic workload? Can you put out 1 episode a week? Can you put out 2 episodes a week? Can you put out 3 episodes a week? The more episodes you add, the more gruesome this gets. One of my old coaches and mentors used to do a daily show. He said by the end of year 1, he wanted to hang himself. So don't overwork, you know. He said that he cut his show down to twice a week and then down to weekly, and he really didn't notice a shrink in his effectiveness. He was able to put out better content. He was able to invite better guests on, because there were limited slots now. So, you know, like, figure out what your minimum effective or maximum effective workload is, and then figure out where you can fit in there. So number 1 is, how often do you want to do it? Then I would say, what? Like, what are you selling? How do you want to make your money? Okay. Do you want to affiliate with people like Omar or myself and sell our stuff because you don't want to make your own programs? You just want to make the podcast. Good. Get us on as guests. Ask us really awesome questions about how we help people, and we will sell our programs and give you a cut. You know, that kind of thing. Well, Omar will. I won't at the moment. I'm not set up for affiliate. But yet, we're going to work on that, Omar and I. But right. So that's one of the things that you can do. Like, I affiliated with a guy earlier on. He was selling programs for $6,000 a program. Every time one of those sold, I made $1,200. Like, my rent was paid for 2 months every time I sold one of those, and I was good, you know? So that was something like, rather than affiliate with like Amazon and make pennies off $1, I knew I wanted to affiliate with like coaches and people who could teach big things, right? Or, you know, maybe it's, so figure out how you want to make money. That's the biggest thing. Maybe it's a service you have. Well, make all of your shows, like, share your gold. That sales lady I was telling you about, her very first call, or her very first episode, is how to never get another no on a sales call. And she delivers, right? For me, I might say, my first episode is, why would you want a podcast for your business? And then I would go in, and in my episodes, I would actually teach you everything you need to know, so that if you took these and followed them A to Z, you would be able to do this. The problem is only 1% of people are going to actually implement. The rest are going to hire me. So, you know, like, give away your gold in the episodes, give away your gold in the show, and, you know, have a link on the back end for people to hire you or book a call with you. You know, maybe you have a landing page set up to a, you know, a subscription service or a membership site, vault full of goodies. So figure out how you want to make your money. Figure out how often you can actually put work into this, and then build your content around your monetization strategy. Mm-hmm. That would be what I would say. A lot of people go the opposite way. They make content and then figure out, how can I monetize this? Which is not impossible, but, you know.
Scott, I got to ask you some things here, right? So,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So, and I'm looking out for everyone here listening, because I know most of you are either authors or you're speakers or you're coaches. So those are like our top, you know, our main audience. So I want to ask, you know, if somebody has, let's say, a speaking program, like a speaker event, like a seminar. I mean, it's like a 5-day seminar. It's like ridiculous, you know, let's say like $50,000 for this mastermind thing. It's a ridiculously priced thing, like, in a good way, right? Yeah. And then there are, and they also have a book. They also have an online course, which is like, let's say $1,000. And they have like a coaching program that's like 5,000 or something. So for someone like that who has all these different things, like, do you suggest that they only focus on sending them one place all the time, all their podcasts, or do you think they should diversify, kind of like, you know, send them to different places?
I personally, from a sales perspective, think the fewer offers you have, the easier it is for you to keep track of. But I would honestly say, like, for me, I don't sell through my podcast. I sell through my community. So the podcast is literally just like, hey, you've heard me. Now, if I, like, my listener journey is, you find my podcast, you hear me like swear a lot, and if you still like me, you click the link below and you join my community. Once you're in my community, you kind of get immersed into this group of podcasters who, like, one, really look up to me, but two, they all know their stuff too. So a lot of the times people will get their questions answered in that community, and the people who will never spend a dime, they stay there. But then there's this group of people who are like, oh my God, I love this guy, or I really need help and I'm just not getting what I want from the free stuff. Those are the people who I make offers to, and I say, like, hey, I've got a vault full of goodies if you need it. It's $100 a month. Or if you don't want to do the work yourself, for $500 a month, I'll just do it for you. And then, so they're like, oh my God, that's what I want, one or the other, you know, and that helps me. But it's sales for my community. Although I will say that, like, again, Jess Lorimer, she recently put out a book and a planner. She literally has, like, pick up my planner right there in her show notes links. And she gets 1 to 2 of those sales per day. Okay. And it's just a small little sale. She has links to her community so people join in and she can start that sales thing. But one thing I will say to authors, one, speakers, if you have a podcast, consider your resume done. Okay, because you can literally send people to your podcast. When you send in an application via email, you can say, and here's my podcast. They'll get to hear the cadence of your voice. They'll get to hear how you conduct yourself. They'll get to hear what you know. And like, people with podcasts tend to get booked faster than people without, unless they've got like an amazing reel of content, right? But authors have one of the coolest things that I wish I could do is, how many chapters are in your book? 12? Why don't you send out a chapter a month in the mail for $30 a month? Have action steps there and make like 10 times what your book is worth. You know, like things like that. And have a little support group on Facebook for everyone to come in and tell you what they did this month out of your, you know, out of your chapters. Like that kind of thing. If you can find a way to divvy it up into a product you can charge monthly for, monthly income's where it's at. So I will say, like, if you've got it, you're limited literally just by your imagination and the resources you have available, you know?
Right on.
Not to mention, you can repurpose your show. That's another way to monetize. Do a bunch of amazing episodes and repurpose it into a book.
Definitely, yeah.
Like tons of ways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just knowing how you want to go about it. That's the biggest problem, you know? But having a podcast will support you professionally because it helps you build, it's consistent content. And then that leads to, if you do it right, that leads to the next step in the relationship, which ultimately leads to you approaching sponsors saying, I know who my listeners are. Or you saying, I know who my listeners are and I know what they want to buy and I want to make that for them, you know? So
right on. And it's all about really
realize is the money isn't necessarily in the podcast. Sorry. The money isn't necessarily in the podcast. The money's in the community it generates. Yeah.
Right on. Cool. And I just want to point out real quick, those of you listening, if you need help, like, you know, figuring out your, how you should monetize, Scott was really, really great at consulting me with my podcast. As you know, we do these bi-weekly webinars and all that. I've kind of had that thought, you know, before, but I've had some really, really great talks with Scott about other ways I can monetize. And I want to share this one. It's really great. For those of you who are coaches, you can also have kind of a sneak peek in how you coach with people. So you can like coach people and record it and use that recording. If it was a really good session, use that on your podcast with their permission. And it's a way for you to share, you know, a little insight of what you do, how you actually help people. And the listeners, if they're suffering from the same problems that you just helped that other client with, you know, they're going to be like, oh, this is really great. I should reach out to this guy, you know, or this gal, you know.
Yeah. Just to further support that, Jess Lorimer, part of our strategy was every Monday she deep dives into a topic, a sales topic. And every Friday she invites someone from her membership community onto the show to ask a sales related question that they specifically need help with. And she answers that question directly for that person, for their business, for everything. And those episodes have resulted in her getting more coaching sales because people are like, oh, wow, she can literally solve my problem in an hour. Let's do this. You know, and it's been causing her to actually get more bookings because she's able to give a live demonstration of how that will look.
Awesome. Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's an awesome strategy. I love it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. So Scott, I want you to go through if there's any more stuff that you wanted to share. I want to make sure you get it through because I know you got to go soon.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, start to finish, real simple. Pick up an ATR 2100, plug it in, play with it, jump on Zoom, record a chat with somebody and just ask them questions you want to know. Like, I don't care if it's your mom or your dad or your aunt or your cousin who has a cool story. Just rather than get on and think like, oh, I have to be like this professional, amazing host right away, break the ice with people you know. They're the hardest interviews in the world anyway. And, you know, just start asking questions and get used to asking the things you want to know the answers to. Because I think the biggest thing you can do wrong, type the model of the mic in the chat box. Yeah, let me do that now. But the number one thing you can actually do wrong is to get on and think you have to do things a specific certain way, because you don't. You know, like you don't have to have a specific set of questions to ask. You don't have to follow this format or this criteria over and over again. Like literally, if Omar got onto my show today and said, Scott, I had an awful experience with a guest yesterday, I'm not going to get on and be like, so how long have you been podcasting? So when did you start and why did you start? So what was your first episode like? I'm not going to ask those things. I'm going to be like, tell me about your shitty guest. And he'll tell me about the experience and we'll get into it. That's what podcasting is. It's about having amazing conversations. And the more of those you have, the more people will realize, even if it's just you solo, like dive into something that's really important to you, because if it's important to you, it's going to be interesting. If it's boring, your audience is going to hear you. So like just constantly be loving what you do and just be focusing on the things you want to know and the things you enjoy and the things your audience wants to hear. And then my other tip is just ask questions. Once you have an audience present and you know who they are, you have your community, your list, or your Facebook community or whatever, ask them, what do you want me to talk about? Or who do you want to have on this show? And the reason why you do that is because it's easier to ask and deliver than it is to try to come up with what you think they want. Because, as much as you think you're in tune, you can very easily miss the point. I do it all the time. So it's important to ask, what do you want?
Right on.
Deliver exactly that.
Right on. And so Scott, is that it? Do you have any other last tips for helping someone, choose the right path for them for profiting?
I think that, if there's a couple of things that are investment heavy in podcasting. One is the gear. We've solved that problem already with the ATR. Once you start getting nitpicky, you can start investigating. We'll help you out in the Podcast Bay community. Pick a mic that's right for you. It's a free community. Go check it out. Join, have fun, talk to people. Number 2, hosting. Hosting can cost as much or as little as you like. I know Omar is working on or has worked on, I think you've already built it, haven't you?
Yeah, it's built.
It's built?
Yeah. We'll get into that in a moment. Don't worry about that. Just
okay,
skip
sure.
that.
But I know there's tons of hosting softwares out there. Omar has a solution to that, which I'm really, really excited for, honestly. There's things like Podbean, Blueberry, Libsyn. Like those are the names that tend to circulate around. Honestly, the bottom end of it is just, it's a place for you to host your show. And as long as the customer support is good and there's statistics that matter to you on there, it doesn't matter who you go with. Ultimately, like I go with Libsyn because it was the one that was introduced to me when I started. I have shopped around, I have tried other places, and honestly, I didn't hate any of them. So, and that can range $20 a month at the most expensive, 20, 30, 40, depending on how many episodes you want to put out. It can be, as little as $9 a month. It just depends who you go with. Biggest thing I say with hosting, go with a company you trust. Go with a company you love, because they're going to keep your show on the air, basically. Their servers are going to be up. They've got to be willing to put in the work to keep your stuff on the air. And then finally, production value, sound quality, promotion. Like once your episodes are recorded, do you want to pour money into making them sound brilliant? Do you want to pour money into marketing them more places? Or do you want to bootstrap it and do it all yourself? Those are just little things you have to make a choice. And there's no real wrong answer. But like Omar has taught me one thing. Everywhere you get help from an expert will actually propel you further than you could yourself. And it's a hard lesson learned for me because I like to do everything myself. But, like my entire business model exists on people not wanting to do this themselves. So, find out where you want to put your investment and what things you don't want to do. And that will change the path for you a little bit. But overall, the gear and the hosting are the 2 upfront expenses, and they don't have to be much.
Right on. So, since I know, Scott, you need to leave soon, I want to respect your time and everyone else here. But I want to finish this off really with something very special that we have made just for you guys here. And those of you also watching the recording, you will have access to this offer as well. So Scott and I go back, and we've been working together for a while. we really want to support each other. So what we've done is we combined our forces here. And, he's been mentioning the Podcast Bay community, and it's a free community. So you're welcome to join that. But in addition to joining the community where you get support, you get feedback, you get to network with other podcasters, you get to schedule interviews, do some interview swaps with people, get feedback on your podcast. It's really, really an amazing community. Not only that, you get that, but you also get a 25-minute consultation with Scott one-on-one. And this is limited for a limited time because we don't know how his schedule is going to be, how many people are going to fill this up. But I can guarantee for at least the next 20 people, you can schedule a 25-minute call with Scott about your podcast. He's going to go dive even deeper into your podcast, what you want to do, how much you want to make, and break that down into steps, how to monetize your podcast. And of course, if you want to hire Scott to just do it for you, edit your podcast and publish it, do all that good stuff, there's a special arrangement that we made for you as well. So you'll be able to hear more about that when you talk to him. And so with that said, I hope that this webinar has given you some guidance on how to choose the right path and make the most money with your podcast. Definitely schedule the call with Scott. There will be a link below this video to do that. And below this recording, as of right now, the live, we don't have that. But the other thing, now, aside from that, there's another thing I want to give you. So as Scott has mentioned, that, the technology is a big part of it. Hosting your podcast, you need it to be secure. You need it to be streaming really quickly, quick servers, all that good stuff. And you need really great support. So what we have is something that is just hitting the market called Podmeo. If you go to podmeo.com, you'll see all the features. You'll learn more about it. I'll put a link below the recording. It's $50 a month, $47 a month. And you get, not only do you get the hosting of unlimited podcasts, unlimited episodes, everything you can imagine that a normal podcast host would offer, but you also get a website with an opt-in form and an autoresponder built in. So what that means is, how we talked about building your community, that's where the real money is. Building your list, that's what this platform does for you. You can actually have your podcast on a website. It could be any website you already own, or you can use the pre-built websites that we offer, and they'll have a subscribe button where they can opt in with their name and email. And in the back end, when you're in your members area, you can send an email out to these people, to your subscribers, all built in, unlimited emails, unlimited everything. So it's a huge value. That's why it's $47 a month. But for those of you who are on this live webinar, we have a special arrangement just for you. I'm going to put a very top secret link in the chat box because it's being recorded. And those of you watching the recording will have to get a different deal, okay? Because you missed out on the live recording. But I'm going to go ahead and just put in the link. All you need to do is go to that link and just follow the instructions that I share here, and we'll hook you up with that very special deal. And for everyone else watching the recording, you just click on the link below the video and you'll get a special deal for it as well. It's not going to be retail. We're going to hook you up definitely for that. And for as long, and it's a monthly fee, by the way, like I said, it's $47 a month. But if you happen to join the Podcast Bay community and you also schedule a call with Scott, I'm willing to let you have that offer, this account, for a full 90 days for free. Okay, so I mean not for free, sorry, for the special deal that we're giving you, and you'll be locked in for that price as long as you stay part of the Podcast Bay community. Hold on a sec. All right, so I put in a link in there, and just click that button. You'll get the details when you follow those instructions. All right, so I just wanted to share that.
Snap. That's actually really good value to get the website and the hosting. And I'm going to have to check that link out because I don't get that for what I pay.
Right on, awesome. Yeah, so Thank you, everyone, again. Go if you want to check out the site podmeo.com. That will show you the features. It's the whole sales page. And also, if you want to get in touch with Scott, click on the link below in the recording. You'll see your link to schedule a call with Scott, okay, to reach out with him. And Scott, is there anything you want to share, any last call to actions or any little tips you want to give, anything?
No, I just feel free to check into the community and definitely check out Podmeo, because on the first couple of seconds when you mentioned like everything, my jaw dropped. I don't think I've heard a deal like that yet. So I've been doing this a while.
Awesome. All right, cool. All right, guys. Thank you everyone again. Thank you so much again, Scott. Really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day, everyone. Let us know how we can support you, okay?
Cheers.
All right, see you guys. Thanks.